Hello and welcome to Sound and Vision, the show that you used to listen to before it went off air. I am your host, as always, as if you can remember me, Ian James. And again, as always, if you remember her, I am joined by the brilliant and beautiful Miss Hope Wade.
Hello.
And we are back.
I know. We're in lockdown. This is our first lockdown show
It is.
2020.
Which is kind of maybe a sign of us just being lazy.
I was going to say we were so lazy. We just got in a lazy period. Took a 2-month break, I think it was. But, it happens.
Yeah, we were working on putting more shows out about a month ago.
We have ideas, but we just got lazy of doing it. There's no excuse. I ain't making no excuses, but we are here.
Here we are, yeah.
We are here today, and we're bringing you some good stuff.
Yeah, so here we have episode 27.
27?
27.
Oh, we need more than that.
Yeah, so hopefully this is the first of many again.
We need to hit that 50 mark.
That's what we're going for by the end of the year.
By the end of the year, I say in the next couple months, just put them out there.
She's going to go for it. Okay, so basically, because this is the first one we've done in, like, forever.
I know, February, I think it was, our last one.
Yeah, we decided to come back, basically, semi-inspired by my 9-year-old son.
Yeah.
Who wanted to hear us again.
Yeah.
And said, why are you not doing these shows anymore?
We had other people in the groups, wanting to hear us. They miss us, but we just
that's what we like to kid
off.
Ourselves.
Yeah, we're slackers.
So here we are, and to celebrate our comeback, we've decided to do one episode each, just to get us back into it, of a subject that we wanted to do. Yeah. Hope has picked
90210, of course.
Exactly.
My favorite,
Like no one ever seen that coming. Which more of later, which will be episode 28.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I managed to kind of make a compromise, I guess, for this one. This is episode 27, and this is Psycho.
Do you like that?
I didn't think we had a cat.
That was I had a pretend knife in my hand.
And it was pretend. So yeah, this is my Hitchcock compromise, because I said I want to do a show on Hitchcock. Now Hitchcock is a massive subject, but what I'm very passionate about.
I know.
And it would just be unfair for me to talk at you for about 4 hours about Hitchcock. So
we'll try and keep it to one.
So what we compromised on doing was just discussing probably his most famous film, and I chose the word famous, not my favorite, not his best movie, but his most famous movie.
What's your favorite then?
Mine?
Yeah. Oh God, is that a bad question?
Vertigo.
Oh yes, that's right. It's only the picture on the wall.
It's a big 7-foot poster hanging behind Hope now. But there you go. Which is it's just it's how bad we've got. So yeah, we're going to discuss the 1960 low budget for Hitchcock, now horror classic. Psycho.
And I think the one that's been tried to reproduce the most in films over the years by many of directors that have tried to
emulate its style.
Yeah, replicate that style of.
Yeah, which I will bring up towards the end. I'll just go through some of the kind of influence that it has on, like you said, on Hollywood and especially on horror movies. So just before I take us back to the beginning of the story of how Psycho happened, I've just got to ask you, do you remember when you first watched Psycho?
No, I don't. I was thinking about that the other day. I don't remember the first time seeing it. I was probably had to be in my early teens, 11, 12.
Do you remember it? Do you remember kind of anything, any little details of where you were? Or was it just one of those films that kind of happened and you just forgot?
Yeah, because like I said, it's America. I've said before, we played movies all the time on TV back in the 80s. So I probably caught it on TV at one point before a video. I'm sure I've caught it on TV.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I even watched it on DVD. They play it so much on our movie channel. So
yeah, it gets a lot of airplay, does that?
Yeah. Oh, totally. Especially around Halloween or something.
Okay.
And they do like marathons of Hitchcock films, so.
Okay.
On AMC or TCM, old movie classic channels. So we get a lot of play of it. So I've probably caught it on there. I do remember seeing the horrific remake with Vince Vaughn.
That's something I want to talk about again later.
Okay.
But I will allow you to spiel on it because...
And God, I can't remember how old I was then. What year did that come out?
98? Yeah.
So yeah, I was in my 20s then. Yeah. But yeah, so I was probably in my early teens seeing Hitchcock, and I was amazed by it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, from what I just said, it almost seems like I don't like it. I do. I love the movie. I just don't think it's his best movie. Okay.
Oh,
but
yeah, he has many.
Absolutely love the movie. Okay, so just to bring the story. Once again, though, before I do start this, I couldn't even tell you when was the first time I've seen it. It's one of those films that's just always been seen. I do remember my sister and my dad watching it before me, though. My dad had taught my sister into watching it for some reason, and not me, which I was really disappointed. I was like, am I not allowed to watch that one?
Yeah.
And then I finally did catch up with it. But after hearing those two talk about it, and that's the only thing I kind of remember. I don't remember. It would have been on telly for definite, but I couldn't really tell you when and where.
Did she love it?
Oh yeah, my sister loves it, and the sequels, which we'll also talk about briefly towards we finish.
Especially two.
Yeah. So just to take it right back to the beginning of, for anyone who's interested in the genesis of Psycho, basically Alfred Hitchcock, which without spending too much time talking about him in particular, is, did I mention it was English? A great English filmmaker. Who transferred over to America in 1940, was given a contract by David O. Selznick to go make movies in America.
So he had to make it big in America.
It's the place to go make money, isn't it?
Of course.
So yeah,
America,
so basically
Hollywood.
they just seen this wonderfully talented British director and wanted him in America. So he went there in 1940, where the first film he shot there was Rebecca. And the kind of story goes that he was making these films through the 1940s that were very, which did okay. And then into the 1950s, I'm trying to pick up the story as quick as I can. He basically went through what most Hitchcock fans will consider his most fruitful period then. Which I suppose starts from Strangers on the Train. Strangers on the Train, should say. And then it carries through a whole series of movies where he started finding certain people to collaborate, certain collaborators that would work with him until the end of his golden period, which I consider to be Marnie. So during that, as I said, his most fruitful period, it taking in things like Dial M for Murder, Rear Window, Man I Knew Too Much, The Wrong Man, Vertigo in 58, which didn't do that well at the time, which is really funny because, I mean, not only myself, but it's considered by most to probably be his best movie.
I love Dial M for Murder. It's a great movie.
Vertigo.
And Vertigo, yeah.
Yeah. yeah, but yeah, fantastic movies, all of them as well. And I can rattle on all day about how great these films are, okay?
Are you saying my choice isn't as good as your choice?
No, not at all. But basically, to pick up this story then, is he did Vertigo in 58, which now is considered a classic, but at the time it did okay. It didn't do brilliant, but it did okay. And, you know, his reputation has grown over the years, weirdly. But the big film that he did, that went out in early 1959 was North by Northwest, which is a fantastic movie. And again, I could do a whole show on that one movie because I absolutely love it. But it was after the success of North by Northwest in early 1959 that Hitchcock was looking for another project to make. And at this point, he was working for Paramount Film Studios and was working, I believe, on a project with Audrey Hepburn called No Bail for the Judge, which all fell through because she got pregnant, so they couldn't film that, and it kind of got scrapped. And there was another movie which I really got around my brains now. Flamingo Feathers, I think it was called, that Hitchcock was working on, which never came to light. So these films weren't happening for him during the shoot. He's having a bit of downtime during 1959. And then his assistant, Peggy Robertson, brought a book to him and said, "Oh, I've read this book. It's really, really good. It's, you know, it's this kind of thing that you would like." So obviously, anyone who knows Hitchcock will know that he had this macabre sense of humor, and he was very, very invested in the darkest humor, and he loved a murder mystery, and he loved, you know, which is completely what Hitchcock is. Which I would point out at some point in the show as well, that Hitchcock is completely mistagged as being a horror director, which I've never ever considered him to be a horror filmmaker at all. More, you know, suspense thrillers and stuff. Anyway, so this book was brought to him, and this is a story by Robert Bloch, which was published in 1959, so it literally just came out, and she'd read it and she'd loved it and told Alfred all about it, and was like, you know, this is really good. So he went away, read it, loved it himself, and said, this is really good, you know, we could film this because it's such a small little movie. But then the difficulty of a book based or semi-based on the Ed Gein case, the famous American serial killer, which inspired Robert Bloch to write the book. Norman Bates is sort of a very loosely based version of Ed Gein. So first things first, Hitchcock said to Peggy Robinson that she must buy up all the copies of this book that are out there before anybody reads it. Because if I'm going to make this movie, I don't want anyone knowing the twists and turns, which, I mean, now it's funny because everyone knows the twists and turns of Psycho, but, you know, back then it would have been completely shocking. Which I'll talk about again a little bit later on, because when the film finally went out, audiences weren't allowed into the movie after half an hour. If you were 20 minutes late to the theatre, you weren't getting in. You have to see it from the beginning. Hitchcock specified this has to be done. Anyway, so they brought up the rights to all these books so nobody could read it. He managed to buy the rights to the book, should have said, just before that, for $9,500 for the rights to the story. And then said to Paramount, right, this is wonderful, right? I've got this story and it's about this subject. And Paramount, we're not going to make this. They said, well, we're not making that kind of movie. You know, you're here to make North by Northwest and such. So Hitchcock kind of hit a stumbling block. At this point also, I must add, he had already set up a TV show, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, or the Alfred Hitchcock Hour, which didn't really play that much over here.
It still plays in the States.
Yeah, regularly as well, from what I hear. My dad managed to show me a few bits and pieces of it, but it wasn't a regular thing. It was really hard to get out of here. And so basically that was a series that he had running over at Universal, or Universal had a hand in doing this low budget show that he would just come in and do a little bit of presenting on. God knows how many episodes they made of it. Hundreds, I'm sure.
I think there was only was there 2 or 3 seasons?
No, it changed his name halfway through, but it ran from 1955 to 1965, so it ran for 10 years. Yeah. And during that period, Hitchcock only directed 18 episodes of it.
Okay.
So he wasn't, he was kind of doing all the Rod Serling Twilight Zone introductions to make it interesting and put a face with it. So basically, what happens here is Paramount won't make this movie because of the subject matter. Hitchcock's got his heart set on making this movie now. And I think he wanted the challenge of making something that was low budget, that he could shoot quickly. And his way of getting around this was to take the crew that he had on the TV series and said, if I employ all the people that I use on my TV series who all know each other, and it would just be easier if everyone knows exactly what they're doing, I can shoot this really quickly. And the only thing he asked of Paramount was that, obviously, he was still under contract to work for them, but the only thing he asked them was that they would distribute his movie, which they agreed to. Although they had a kind of problem with it after, I think, when it came out and what was happening with it. They quickly sold the rights to the movie as well to Universal. They just wanted to wash their hands of it, which is really funny because obviously it's a really successful movie. And I must point out as well that Paramount did say they would distribute it. Universal where he was going to film it with his crew from his TV show. And so it was the smallest budget of any Hitchcock film from that period. I think he made it for 800,000. So not even £1 million. And by the time it finally came out, it grossed over 50 million.
Yeah.
Which is, I think the film made £49 million, yeah. So, yeah, first things first, over to Universal. They shot this movie in late 59. So the same year the book was published. So he was quick onto this. And I think the shooting began in November of 59, and they wrapped filming in February 1960. Where later on in 1960, in September, it finally got its release, for everyone to see. I think there was a preview screening in the June, so I remember. So late November 59 into early 1960, shooting Psycho on sets that were over at Universal. And the thing I'll mention this as well now is there was a program that played, which is owned by Universal again. It's called Thriller, which again was like a Twilight Zone, Alfred Hitchcock Presents half an hour kind of show. Yeah. That was presented by Boris Karloff in 1960. And I'm not, for anyone who's familiar with it, there was a few episodes of that which I really, really like, and it have inspired some things in pop culture which I like. Even a Pretenders song, it's got lyrics stolen from an episode of Thriller with Boris Karloff. But the reason I want to say that really quickly is they actually used the house, the Bates house, because obviously it was on the set. Yeah. So they filmed some of their, creepy house episodes. And it's funny because every time you watch those, you're thinking, what's the Bates Motel?
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So yeah, something to look out for if you're ever on YouTube or something.
Isn't it still there in Universal?
Yeah, as a touristy attraction now to go and see. So just, mind a bit of trivia there. So just to talk about the crew that Hitchcock took into this movie then in 59 to make it at Universal. So the Robert Bloch book, obviously he'd brought the rights to. Other than that, he had no other really say in this movie, other than his book was used. The screenplay was put together by Joseph Stefano, and this was only the second film project he ever worked on, interestingly enough. And also, the fact that this movie didn't really lead into any more work really for him, except for TV work, and he wrote like a ton of episodes for the Outer Limits TV show. And he also wrote the screenplay for a really, really underrated movie from 1969 called Eye of the Cat, with Michael Sarrazin, and Gail Honeycutt, which I think is a brilliant little movie if anyone ever sees that one. That was released by Universal as well. And that's the best of Joseph Stefano's screenplays after Psycho, in my opinion. Really worth seeing that one. Robert Bloch, though, whose novel this is based on, was writing episodes for the Alfred Hitchcock show. So he knew Alfred Hitchcock, which is how Hitchcock managed to wrangle the rights to his book from him. But he would eventually become a screenwriter himself, which is funny, thinking that Alfred Hitchcock didn't ask him to adapt his own book. and chose a second writer in Stefano. It was a second choice because he replaced a guy called James Kavanagh, because him and Hitchcock wasn't seeing eye to eye on this screenplay. But Robert Bloch, whose book it is based on and was writing for the Hitchcock TV show, went off to England to write many of the films for Amicus. You know, their wonderful short story Amicus movies that me and my friends love. He wrote pretty much all those. And then he also wrote Straight Jacket and Nightwalker for William Castle as well. So every time his name was ever on anything, it was always Robert Bloch, in brackets, Psycho. Mm-hmm. You know, they would constantly use it to kind of sell his brand of macabre kind of horror.
Yeah, like how Blumhouse uses The Exorcist and everything else to lift their sales and moviegoers, right? Like this movie's like The Exorcist. This movie's like Psycho. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So
like,
Robert Bloch,
this movie's like Halloween. Go see it.
Yeah, Robert Bloch could have just wrote that one book. He lived off it forever, and he kind of did live off it forever, I should say. So Hitchcock's there directing. They got the screenplay by Joseph Stefano. Also, should mention here, because it interests geeks like me, director of photography on this was John L. Russell, who, as I mentioned, was part of Hitchcock's television crew, replacing Hitchcock's regular DP Robert Burks, who I absolutely love. Burke shot all Hitchcock's best movies, and he had a complete eye for what Hitchcock wanted. He was wonderful, and he shot all his movies up until Marnie, and unfortunately, really sadly, died in a fire, which not many people know about. Saul Bass as well, who is the credit designer on this for the opening credits, which are absolutely fantastic as Psycho. He'd worked previously on Hitchcock's Vertigo and North by Northwest, so he was kind of one of the people who didn't work for the TV show, but was quite happy to work with Hitchcock again. And he also storyboarded the famous shower scene. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about that later on, because there's a lot of rumour that he directed it himself as well, which has totally been dismissed by Janet Leigh. So yeah, you got Saul Bass's wonderful credits. John L. Russell's very, very low-key cinematography on this, shot in black and white as well. You know, cheaper way of doing things for Hitchcock at that point, and absolutely appropriate for the movie. Also much mentioned, the score is by Bernard Herrmann, who was Hitchcock's regular collaborator and had been right since The Trouble with Harry in 1955. Again, delivers this fantastic score, because we need to talk about the Hitchcock Bernard Herrmann collaborations are brilliant, but we need to talk about this one in particular. The score,
it's used in everything.
Absolutely everything.
Yeah.
And the thing I must mention about that while I'm here is, apparently Hitchcock wanted no score. He said, I'm going to make this movie, he's going to have no score. And Herrmann said, you can't do that.
No.
You need something to kind of let the audience kind of know.
Suspense.
Give them the message, which is really friendly. Hitchcock didn't want this. But anyway, Herrmann said, well, what if we really pare it down and just use the most basic? You know, I'll do this with like 3 instruments. Yeah. We'll make it very, very low key, and we'll just use strings, basically. And he said the basic element of the strings will match the basic look of your black and white photography, which it completely does.
Yeah.
And I've always said this, and I maintain it. I always say that artists are only ever as good as what they have to work with, and you're only as good sometimes as your collaborators. You know, this was very important to have a team around you that you can bounce ideas off, but it has to be a team you completely trust. And Hitchcock was very lucky in a lot of those areas that he had people that were on the same kind of wavelength as him. So Bernard Herrmann, who, you know, just who for me is one of the 3 greatest composers ever in film history, completely got this one right by telling Hitchcock he needed this. And it's funny as well, I must mention this as well, because I don't know when the last time you've seen Reanimator is.
It's been a long time.
Okay, Charles Band's score for that is just this. And
really?
I'm shocked that no one sued him for it. It's exactly, and I always laugh when I watch Reanimator because I can't get Psycho out of my head. It's carbon copy.
Oh, I'm gonna have to watch it now.
Embarrassingly so. And I love Reanimator, but if anything, that's the one thing that stops Reanimator being great for me, is that score.
It's been so long since I've watched that movie.
It's Herrmann's score. Okay, so that's the technical side of this movie. Casting is a little bit more fun, and pretty much first choices kind of all round here. So Hitchcock was very lucky that Janet Leigh slashed her usual salary then to make this movie. She was very keen to work with Hitchcock. There's also a rumour that she had one more movie to make at Paramount Studios on a contract, so she was kind of had to do this movie. I'm not sure what's completely true. I'm sure she would have wanted to work with Hitchcock, and she does. Other choices for the role, though, was Eva Marie Saint, who'd worked on North by Northwest, Piper Laurie.
Okay.
It was kind of going into retirement at that point,
yeah.
And didn't come back out until 76 when she did Carrie. Oak Lang, who's always a great Hollywood actress, also plays the mum in Freddy's Revenge. So can I squeeze that in a bit quick? And Lana Turner was another choice for this one, which would have been quite fantastic in my opinion. I think Lana Turner would have had, it sounds really mean, but would have had the slutty quality.
Yeah.
I still think, personally, even though I really like her, and I think Janet Leigh is just a little bit too pure for this part.
Yeah.
Where someone like Lana Turner, I just mentioned, or Gloria Graham, they just specialised in four tiers, black and white, film noir
trying
kind
to
of
be
sluts,
sexy.
trampers,
Yeah.
the women who would have been perfect for the role
like
of this
the
one.
thief and the somebody who's so I couldn't see Janet Leigh really being the thief of the.
I know, it just seems too.
movie.
I mean, because every film I've ever seen Janet Leigh, and I love Janet Leigh, and I watched many of them. You know, Jet Pilot with John Wayne, The Naked Spur, Touch of Evil, The Vikings, loads of stuff. And she's just like, was the kind of a goody-goody.
Yeah.
And I do really like her, but okay. Anyway, so she's cast here as Marion Crane. The name is a change from the book, apparently, because they found there was a real... I forget the name of the character in the book now, but they had to change it to Marion Crane. They had to change the name because there was actually a real person that existed, and they were worried about getting in trouble for that one. So she plays, as I said, Marion, and basically, we just break the story down really quickly of Psycho, is that, and it is such a simple story, is Marion Crane is this businessy woman who's having an affair with a character called Sam, who's played by John Gavin. I should mention here, who was not the first choice for the movie, and this is the one bit of casting in this whole movie that Hitchcock hated. He said he hated working for him. Hitchcock used to refer to him as the stiff behind his back. He said, "Oh Christ, we've got to deal with stiff today." And apparently he wanted Stuart Whitman or Robert Loggia, who turned up in Psycho 2, so that's interesting. But John Gavin was not his choice. Really didn't want him. But yes,
was he like the tall and dark and handsome kind of man?
And he was sort of, I think he just finished filming Spartacus as well at that point, so he very much had the matinee kind of look. And, and Hitchcock can say he's a little stiff in this. I don't think he's that bad. He does what he has to do. I kind of disagree with Hitchcock. There must have been something personal. He's
just jealous.
Probably, because I mean that's a whole other subject. Hitchcock and his women. That is a whole other subject.
He liked the blondes, right?
He certainly did. Sam and Marion, the characters in this book, are having an affair and they want to run away together, but of course they've got no money, so Marion has this idea of ripping off the business that she works for by taking 40 grand, which is the MacGuffin of Psycho, because it's not even important. Once you get 45 minutes through this movie, we forget that the 40 grand even existed. It's just what famously Hitchcock calls the MacGuffin. It's just a function to move the story forward and to keep you interested until he can give you what he wants to give you. So yes, they steal the money.
What happened to the 40 grand?
You never find out.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was
probably goes down with the car.
Yeah,
I don't know, but
I thought she put it under the night table or something. Like she hid it somewhere in a bath towel, if I remember correctly. And, and put it and stuffed it somewhere in the hotel room, but you would think Norman would grab it or something.
I don't think Norman knows what's going on.
He was just perving.
But talking of Norman for a second, because I want to continue with the casting just for a second. Yeah, probably. Vera Miles, I need to mention here, this is quite important actually. She plays Marion's sister, who kind of breaks the case at the end and saves the day.
Because her sister's missing, and she's like, where the hell is she?
To a degree, yeah. Now, Vera Miles was the original choice for Vertigo.
Okay.
And it's interesting now for me to think back how that would have worked out. And I've got nothing against Vera Miles. She'd worked with Hitchcock previously on The Wrong Man with Emery Fonda. And I've always liked her. She's in The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance as well. But she was going to be cast in the main lead in Vertigo, and then she fell pregnant and couldn't do it. Hitchcock felt terrible because he was very friendly with her, and he said, well, I will put you in one of my movies. I'll find something else for you to do. And sadly, it's a very secondary part in Psycho that she gets to play. And she's almost designed quite frumpily in this as well, to not take anything away from Janet Leigh, which is a kind of weird thinking that Vera Miles had to play a secondary character when she could have played the lead in Vertigo, which obviously went famously to Kim Novak. Martin Balsam's also in this, who I absolutely love, is Arbogast, the cop who's investigating the case. He's absolutely fantastic in this. One of my favourite actors anyway, full stop. 12 Angry Men, Cape Fear, tons of stuff, love him. So it's a great little cast. Obviously Hitchcock has his usual cameo in this one. Do you remember spotting Hitchcock in this one? Sorry, at the beginning?
Was he in the scene when they're in town?
She sees him through a window.
Oh, at the window at the when she's at the office.
Yeah. And he's got
I
a
remember
kind of Stetson-y hat on, hasn't he? Kind of. And Patricia Hitchcock has also got a part in it. His daughter, who had a few minor parts in probably 2 or 3 of his movies. I should mention that one. I mean, I'm not going to give anything away because people know. Oh God, I hope to God you know the story of Psycho already. But I have to mention this because I'm going to talk about certain things and I'm going to totally forget what we're talking about. So I don't want to mention that Martin Balsam, who plays Arbogast, the policeman in this, who has that wonderful death sequence in the house. I mean, there's only two killings in this whole movie.
That's like the best cinematography ever.
Yeah, shooting it from above. Yeah. Completely designed and arranged by Hitchcock. there is a reference to it. It's really funny because Martin Balsam, who, like I said, is fantastic in a million things, but he turns up in a not so good movie called Two Evil Eyes, which is it was just two Edgar Allan Poe stories like kind of shoved together. And George Romero does the one, and Dario Argento does the other. And then Martin Balsam's in the Dario Argento one, which is based on The Black Cat. And there's a scene in that, and it's fleeting, and if you know what you're looking for, it's quite funny. The Martin Balsam almost like stumbles on the steps, and they shoot it in exactly the same way because it's the same actor, but 30 years later. It's a good little in-joke for anyone who's geeky enough like myself to spot that kind of reference. It's fantastic. Trust me, it's worth looking for. Also, he joked about when they were making this movie that he was going to get 3 people to play Mrs. Bates because he couldn't decide who he wanted to play Norman's mum.
Yeah, I remember seeing like photos of somebody else dressed as Norman's mom in like the back, like stills and stuff of movies, like the back,
which
behind
cool.
the scenes.
I know, but as soon as I say that, it's almost like, well, there is no Norman's mum, so was he casting 3 people as Norman's mum? Norman's mum doesn't exist in Psycho. But that's the joke that he was keeping everyone on their toes.
Oh, you mean wasn't there somebody dressed as Anthony Perkins, like who was supposed to be, you know how he dresses up in his mother's clothing and stuff, and there was another guy dressed in the clothing?
There's a point which I'll get to eventually. That's for the shower scene. Okay. Well, we'll mention it any second there. I'll mention it. But yeah, talks of people to play Mrs. Bates, and he was non-existent in the movie for anyone who knows.
She's a skeleton.
Judith Anderson but Judith Anderson who plays, do you remember Mrs. De Winters in Rebecca, the housemaid?
No.
You don't remember Rebecca? Oh, she's fantastic in it anyway. Hitchcock really wanted to fit her in somewhere to do something. Very loyal to old cast members and stuff. And they're fantastic. Now, mentioning shots in this movie, so I got to mention them, right? I mentioned my favourite one with Martin Balsam on the stairs, which you pointed out is fantastically shot. Which is also kind of slightly referenced in that horrible remake of Willard, which I hated, by the way, with Crispin Glover. Awful. But the Bates house and that, the house that he lives in, that is almost like modelled on the whole of the Bates house. And there is a shot, again, in that one that reminds me of this. Interesting, I got to point this one out. This is for film buff fans, horror fans. At the end, when they uncover Mrs. Bates as a skeleton in the cellar of the house. I don't know if you remember, but kind of Norman comes in dressed up, and it's the kind of, they bash the light bulb, and then the light bulb swings, and you get this kind of intermittent light that comes over. That shot is stolen from Albert Llewellyn's picture of Dorian Gray from 1945, which I absolutely adore. And the shot is used in Psycho, and then is referenced in many horror films. If there's a chance to knock the light bulb and make it swing, it's in nearly every horror film. Most famously, probably in Friday the 13th, when she gets killed in the bathroom stall with the axe in the face, and there's the swinging light bulb. I just want to point out that it's been used a million times, and most people go, "Oh yeah, it's Hitchcock shot from Psycho." And as much as I like to say it was, it isn't. He stole that one himself, which means that even the best can take from elsewhere.
It's just borrowing.
Yeah, that's what Tarantino told us. Talking of Anthony Perkins as well, because I want to touch on him, because what we need to really kind of give him a good sort of,
yeah, he was excellent.
We need to say good things about him because he is fantastic in this.
Yes.
And for me personally, as much as I love Hitchcock, I think Perkins is the thing that makes this whole thing work.
Yeah.
But he's so good in it. And famously, it was kind of a part that killed his career to a degree. He was playing kind of fruffy romantic leads before this movie. Was in the Toy Story with Jane Fonda. Was fantastic in a baseball movie called Fear Strikes Out. And was also very good in Anthony Mann's The Tin Star, which is a Western. So he was very versatile going into this movie, doing other things. And he was also working on Broadway as well, doing plays and stuff. When he took the part of this, part of Norman Bates, which he famously said, in quotes, consider Norman Bates to be the Hamlet of horror. He said it was, as much as it kind of semi-killed his career, because he played it so bloody well.
Yeah.
It was also, he claimed to be the best part he ever had. And he really enjoyed playing Norman. Hence why he turned up for all the sequels and various things. And at the time of his death, sadly in 1992, he was preparing another sequel. I mean,
really?
God knows what that would have been.
Yeah.
But there was another sequel on the go. Also want to point out that he was one of the only people on the set of this movie as well that actually chose his own wardrobe. Everyone else was kind of put into costumes by Hitchcock. He specified that he wanted to choose his own wardrobe, which, if you remember, involves a very long black turtleneck, but which he famously wore because he said, I hate my neck, it's too long, so I want to cover it up. So it is a bit trivia for you. As I said, everyone else was kind of designed to look and act a certain way, particularly Janet Leigh. Again, bit of trivia, most people know it. Just the fact that Hitchcock said that he wanted to represent the good and bad side of Janet Leigh's Marion Craig character. So at the beginning, when she's having that passionate you know, a little encounter in the afternoon, which is a fantastic opening sequence, probably one of my favorite opening sequences of any film, where the camera kind of drifts in through a window, where we see her having this private moment, you know, kind of an affair that, you know, is kind of hiding from the world. But, you know, Hitchcock takes you on this wonderful shot through the window, and we see her lying on the bed in famously a white brassiere, which Hitchcock's put her in to say he wants her to be pure and passionate. And then he said when she's completed the robbery, we see her getting undressed for her shower. She's now in black because she's being naughty and evil. So everything's kind of, Hitchcock has set it up to be a certain way. You know, there's every detail as it means something to him, if you know what I mean. And so basically, yeah, the story then goes that she steals the money from her job, she hits the road, and then there's this storm, and then she kind of finds herself stranded and lost there in the middle of nowhere, and the first place she finds to stay is this very sinister looking motel on the side of the road, which we now know as the Bates Motel, which is something like, I can't remember, 14 cabins or something, and there's obviously the house of the owner on the hill behind it, which is run by this young guy called Norman Bates, who's played, as I mentioned, brilliantly by Anthony Perkins, who lives alone with his mother, or so we think. And Marion Crane comes, she decides she's going to spend the night and sort it all out in the morning, has this one big discussion with the young Norman who runs the motel, and then decides to retire for the evening back to her room where she will take the shower and wash away her sins from this robbery, is what Hitchcock has designed. And then is famously, I mean, we're giving nothing away, is famously murdered in this incredible shower sequence, which I suppose Hitchcock is, I mean, I think that's the one scene that most people will probably forever remember this movie for.
And to have it like done at the beginning of a film, have a main character killed off was a big thing back then.
Yeah, I'm going to massively touch on that very quickly. The house, the Bates Motel, that actual house, Norman's house then is designed and built at Universal. She said it's still there now as a tourist attraction, but it's actually inspired by an American painter called Edward Hopper, who did those wonderful paintings of like diners at night and stuff that you all see.
American that you see fantastic. Of Marilyn and James
yeah, that kind of night lit diner things. It was based on one of his paintings called House by the Railroad. So this loosely designed idea of what the Bates house looks like is from that. Yeah. Just once again, this is all true. I just drop bits of trivia in just to make it for my boring spiel here. We will talk about the shower scene there real quickly, because it's probably, you know, like it's the centerpiece of the movie. And you're absolutely right though on the importance of killing off his main character 45 minutes into the movie. As a fan, I'll speak just briefly here as a fan. The first 45 minutes of Psycho is the best 45 minutes of Psycho. It's probably one of the best 45 minutes of any film. And then by me saying that, you know, it's got people probably going to think, well, you must love it then. If you just said that, it must be one of your favourite films of all time. That's my point, is the first 45 minutes is so good.
Do you fall off towards the end then?
I do, to the point where there is a famous discussion that takes place.
With the cop.
With Dr. Richmond, where he explains the whole plot of the movie.
Yeah.
And it's the saggiest, like, 12 minutes of cinema I've ever seen in my life. I think
when they're down the basement talking.
We've uncovered Norman.
Yeah.
And then it's all over. We kind of arrest him, take him away, and then everything is explained to Vera Miles and John Gavin when they're at the police station. And we have this 12-minute sequence, which is just this boring monologue, I have to admit, of this guy just telling you the whole film, and you think, I don't really need this. I mean, a 1960s audience. It seems unfair to say this, but almost like, well, a 1960s audience might have needed it. I really don't need it. Do you know what I mean? And I think it just slowly sags the movie down there, and that's my real reason why I wouldn't put Psycho among my 10 favourite Hitchcock movies. There's just certain elements towards the end that it kind of drops off for me, right? As much as I absolutely adore the first 45 though, which I think is stunning. And like you said, to kill off your main character halfway through. And then there was another movie released the same year as Psycho, which I'm sure if Jeff Alderman has listened to this, he'll go, yeah, because I've had a discussion with him about it, which is a guy that I'm friends with who's part of this group that we're involved in, 2020 Vision. There's the plug.
Yeah.
And we've had this discussion. There was a movie called Horror Hotel. I think it's what you titled it in America, but it's not. I think it's City of the Dead in this country, which is like the first movie ever released by Amicus with Christopher Lee and stuff. And there's a wonderful sequence halfway through them, and it's literally 40 minutes into it where we kill the main character off, and it's like, wow, we've been following this character for 40 minutes, and we've just kind of killed him off. So it came out the same year as Psycho. So there's this massive debate on, did anyone see anyone else's film first? The book came out in 1959. I don't know. It's just one of the things that's up in the air and we would never get to the bottom of. But a fantastic movie for anyone who's curious about checking out. A very low budget black and white gem, also from the same year as 1960. And also has a similar ending to this one as well, when they uncover Miss Bates. But I'll let you go and find that movie to work that out for yourself. To bring it back to the shower scene though, basically shower scene was, I think it took like 6 days to film. I think they started filming it on the 18th of December of 1959 and finished the day before Christmas Eve. which is really funny.
Oh.
So they were spending those period trying to shoot this elaborate shower sequence, which was storyboarded by the brilliant. And I just see my co-host's face like, oh yeah, I got to squeeze that in. So I'm going to someone please remind me at some point to mention Christmas later. So yeah, Sol Bass, who storyboarded this whole shower sequence and has also gone on to claim that he directed it himself, which Janet Leigh, who's actually in the scene, has said, no, you didn't, right? But he certainly did design it. It was delayed twice, this sequence, because number one, Janet Leigh had a really, really bad head cold, and they were going to stick her in cold water to film this scene. And the time after, she was on a period. So it was really inappropriate to shoot. So it was delayed twice in filming.
They could have skipped the blood part. They would already had it.
I know, but then that would mean that Hitchcock would be left to eat all that chocolate sauce, which is what they used because it looked darker.
Yeah, but they could have had real. They could have had the real stuff.
But it didn't look good on Parrot. It didn't look as good on lens. So they used chocolate sauce because it was darker and it could really see it.
Really?
Black and white. True fact. The sounds for the knife cutting into Janet Leigh was obviously the sounds of someone stabbing a Turkish melon. What the hell is a Turkish melon? Is that just a melon from Turkey? What's the difference?
I don't know. Maybe it's a different flesh.
Yeah, so stabbing Turkish melons, using chocolate sauce for the blood. Janet Leigh waiting for the period to end so they could get on with filming the sequence. And when they finally did get to film it, as you pointed out earlier on, Anthony Perkins was not available. He was filming a play, so he wasn't there to shoot the famous shower scene. That is not Anthony Perkins, as you pointed out, is another actor dressed as Norman, dressed as his mum. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So Janet Leigh says that Sol Bass didn't direct it, that Hitchcock did. Now, the final shot of the shower sequence is when she paws down the curtain and collapses to the floor, and we see the blood swirling off down the plug, and then there's this wonderful close-up of Janet Leigh's eye, and it kind of pulls back. And this is one of the couple of errors that are in this movie, because her eyeball has dilated and not contracted. When you dilate, it goes the other way. So I think it goes really small in this one, if I remember from Psycho, but it should have gone really big, because that's what happens at death. Also, Alma Raval, who was Hitchcock's wife through his whole life, and an amazing editor, and also very important, just as important as Hitchcock. And I think half the time, if she wasn't around, Hitchcock wouldn't have got anything done, put it that way. Now, she watched this sequence religiously over and over, making sure it looked perfect, that we didn't see any nudity, which we certainly didn't, because Janet Leigh was wearing moleskin patches covering the nips.
Okay.
So this sequence was watched a number of times to make sure we didn't see nudity, to make sure we didn't see a knife look like it was really entering the body, which, because the sequence is so brilliantly shot, we didn't. And you can slow it right down. It's quite funny watching it. When you watch it purely for that 30 seconds, it looks like, this knife's going in there, Janet Leigh, she's getting killed, it's brutal, and it's a fantastic sequence, one of the great sequences of cinema, but it's just sheer camera angles and again, wonderfully storyboarded. But Alma Raval watched the sequence many times over, and to the point where she pointed out to Hitchcock that you're going to have to freeze frame her on the floor, lying there with the eyeball, because she blinks. She noticed the blink.
Yeah.
And Hitchcock, they watched it like 3 or 4 times before he could see this blink. It was minimal.
Yeah.
But Alma could see it.
He was probably
like,
blinking the same time she was blinking and didn't see it.
I don't know, it just always makes me laugh thinking that Alma's like, no, she blinks.
Yeah.
But just an incredible scene, which also makes me want to say something else about the shower scene, which I have to come back to, because there was something else and it's totally skipped my mind about that sequence. As fantastic as it is. I'm talking about just a couple of other scenes from the movie, which I also really adore. I'll ask you actually, have you got a particular favourite scene from Psycho?
The death scene was really good, of the detective when he fell down the stairs. Was he the detective?
Arbogast, played by Martin Balsam, was fantastic. I think that even though the shower scene's iconic and it's brilliantly shot, I still think Balsam's death on the stairs is even more shocking to me, because it almost comes from nowhere. Yeah. We got this above shot. Yeah. He wanders up onto the landing, as we call it in this, the top of the stairs. And then he just comes in from this room out of nowhere, just knocks him down the stairs.
And the scene kind of feels like one of those roller coaster rides that they stimulate, like in at places where you're going down a roller coaster, so you're kind of falling with him when he falls backwards. Yeah, so do you know what I mean?
It's a brilliantly shot sequence.
Yeah, so I thought that was always clever. And probably the shower scene was good. But yeah, those 2 scenes. But I love Norman.
2 death scenes though, that's it, just 2 death scenes.
Yeah, I love Norman's acting in it.
Perkins doing the whole sequence where he makes her a sandwich and they're sat at the back amongst his many stuffed animals, which taxidermist obsession, I hope.
I have a
shares
big
with
obsession.
Norman, which is really worrying for me.
Anybody who's a taxidermist just has to be a little bit off. You know, they all go a little mad sometimes, I guess. So
To quote Norman, yes. Thanks for doing that, because you have reminded me of what I wanted to mention. It's just a funny little anecdote story to go with the shower sequence, which is now iconically what we remember Psycho. When the film was released, basically there was a movie made in 1954 called La Diabolique, which was shot by Henri-Georges Clouzot, French director. It's a fantastic movie. It was one of my favourite movies in the 1950s. French movie based on a book by a couple of French guys who also wrote the book, which was then used for that material for Vertigo. So basically, anyone who hasn't seen the Diabolique, there was a famous death sequence in a bath, in the bath, where the body rises back from the bath and it's ripped off at the end of Fatal Attraction, which is horrible, by the way. So yeah, there's a famous sequence in a bath, in that, a famous death sequence, or recovering of a corpse, or a scary sequence in a bath. And of course,
scare.
yeah, and so and Hitchcock gives us one here. This is in the shower. Okay, now someone sent a letter to Alfred Hitchcock and said, "Thank you very much. Because of you and that other movie, my daughter refuses now to have a bath or a shower. What do you suggest I do?" And Hitchcock famously said, "I don't know. Send her to the dry cleaners." Which is classic Hitch in his sense of humour. But I mean, a scene I did want to mention to you though, a scene that I really like. And it's a very minor scene, because when we talked about The Exorcist in the past, this is most of my favourite scenes in that, and nothing to do with green spew or crucifixes. It's the subtler little sequences. And there is a moment in Psycho, which is, I would probably say it's my favourite scene in the movie, yet no one really mentions it, is when Norman goes to sink the car in the swamp at night. He clears up the whole mess of Marion Crane in the cabin and puts everything to right, and then he has to just get rid of the car, so he takes the car out to the swamp and he pushes it in, and then Hitchcock then gives us sort of 3 minutes to stand with Norman and watch this car sink in the swamp. And he's almost getting you, and it works. It's very manipulative, which Hitchcock is the best director ever at doing this, manipulating his audience. And this scene manipulates you to almost sympathise with Norman. You want the car to sink, and there's that fleeting moment where it goes down, 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 and then it holds, and then he's like, oh, you know, shit, I'm going to have to go in and push it in. It's not going down. And you can see him like, oh my God, please just sink. So I can go home and this is over. And it holds for like 10 seconds and then it carries on sinking. But for that 10 seconds, you want it to sink. And then when you think about it after, you think, Christ, I actually was with Norman. I wanted the car to disappear. I want the evidence to be gone. Do you know what I mean? It's just... And that sequence for me is my favourite in Psycho. And it's certainly better than that 12 minutes of explaining that Dr. Richmond does at the end, where he's got to tell us the whole story and why it happened. And I'm going to mention this actually really, really quickly, because we will talk about the films that Hitchcock's Psycho inspired. One of them, most famously, being Dressed to Kill by Brian De Palma, which I absolutely adore as a piece of cinema. Because Hitchcock's so, De Palma is so good at putting pure cinema together and putting his own twist on it, his own black humour on it, and bending the story. I love Dressed to Kill. But if you look at Dressed to Kill in any other way, it's just a blatant Psycho rip-off, the whole movie. He's just moved a few minor details here and there. But that doesn't offend me because I absolutely love it. So I'm going to defend it anyway. But sadly so, it's that much of a Psycho rip-off, which... De Palma is the biggest Hitchcock fan in the world, so it's obvious why he's done it. That he actually has his little 12-minute explanation sequence in Dressed to Kill as well. And I'm thinking, well, that didn't even work in Hitchcock's version. Why are you doing it? Yeah, we have 12 minutes to work out why everything happened the way it did. And you're thinking, why would a film in 1980, 20 years later, need that sequence in there?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It was a drag in Psycho. We don't need it here either. And the thing that redeems the end of Psycho is once they've finished telling us everything that we already know, you get that wonderful tracking shot that takes us down to Norman sat in the room in the straitjacket.
In the holding room.
And the little fly that lands on him. And then you get this kind of, it's worrying that he's not better in any way.
Yeah. I know, because he's very much, he comes across a little naive or childlike in a way, because he still has his mother in his head. You know what I mean? Like, that's
and I love how none of that is explained either. Like someone's like, we don't need all that backstory. Hitchcock just feeds us enough to use our own kind of what kind of upbringing and growing up that he had. Because I'm just going to talk briefly, and this is where you can fill in some gaps for me. Basically, because obviously there was a show years later, which you might be able to tell me some more about, because I didn't see it, I have to be honest. I mean, the film came out in 1960, it made millions, Paramount still didn't want nothing to do with it, Universal did the rights. It was nominated at the Oscars, so it was acknowledged that year, for Best Director, which Hitchcock didn't win, which Hitchcock never won for his whole career, which is really sad. When people talk about the Oscars, right? Hitchcock never won an Oscar. Orson Welles never won an Oscar. Stanley Kubrick never won an Oscar. So basically what I'm saying is fuck the Oscars.
Yeah, no, it's just the pompous, rich people that whoever... I don't know, critics are really
it's a
weird
lot
to
of
me.
backslapping.
It's just
isn't it?
everybody's personal opinion, and who's to say theirs is better than anybody else's, so I don't like critics too much.
The film was also nominated for Best Supporting Actress for Janet Leigh's wonderful, as we pointed out many times, first 45 minutes of the movie is fantastic. Best Cinematography, which is brilliantly crisp black and white, and like we said, endlessly kind of looked at and kind of admired today. Best Art Direction as well, which for the Bates Motel and the interiors of that place, I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
The American Film Institute put it among the greatest movies ever made in 1998. It came in at 18. It's one of the greatest movies ever made. And the National Library Film Registry is kind of Congress then is put the movie as something that will last forever. It's an important piece of art, and it's very looked after, and has gone on to be the most famous film that Hitchcock ever directed, and the one that most people will instantly say the moment you mention Hitchcock. Did you ever see the trailer for it? It's got one of the weirdest trailers ever. Find it online, right? It is basically a 10-minute trailer of Hitchcock walking around the Bates Motel, just taking you around, taking you on a tour of the rooms.
Yeah.
Oh, something's going to happen in here, and something happens up on the hill, and have a look in here. And then the last bit of the trailer is brilliant because he goes, the bathroom, and he leaves it there, and it's like, it's just the most random trailer ever.
Do you think he loved himself to be on camera? Because he's very hammy.
Yeah.
Is he a Quentin of the early days? A Quentin Tarantino?
I'd like to think he was better than that. But it does have the weirdest trailer. There was also a tagline for the poster. I remember saying something like, "Don't give away the ending, because we only have one," which is brilliant. But yeah, I fantastically want to talk to you now, though, a little bit about the sequels, a little bit about the TV show, which I never saw, and just a little bit.
Well, can we talk about first how people want to classify this movie as a Christmas film?
Yeah.
Because some people say the scene when he films it in town, obviously he probably right after they shoot him. Is it
like I said, it started filming in November of '59. Yeah,
I think she's leaving. Is she the one leaving in a car or something? And she's in town.
Marion's driving it. Yeah,
and there's Christmas decorations.
The story and the book are based in the summer.
Okay, yeah.
But unfortunately, we caught
it's December
because it was filmed in November.
And there was Christmas decorations in town, but
so Hitchcock that's the
had
reason.
To put the date December 11th on the card
to cover himself.
To cover, because if not, then what if you put it in the summer? You'd be like, oh shit, there's like Christmas decorations everywhere. So, but just that one little scene, people want to classify this as a Christmas movie.
Which is something that you had the biggest argument ever about, and it went on and on.
Yeah, people can fuck off because it's not a Christmas movie.
This was some film group that was pointing out obscure Christmas movies, and somebody mentioned that Psycho was a Christmas movie. Hope rightfully corrected them, and the whole, basically, the shit hit the fan, didn't it?
Yeah, I got kicked out and everything. And I didn't say it rudely. I said it very polite, but now I'll say it rudely. Everybody can fuck off if they think it's one, because it's not a Christmas movie. Norman didn't have Christmas decorations. There's no Christmas music. There's nothing.
There's nothing Christmas about this movie.
There is nothing. Hitchcock. There's no snow. There's nothing.
I know.
Not even though California doesn't really get snow. There is nothing.
Can I just say, if anyone thinks that Psycho is a Christmas movie, can you stop listening now? I'm joking, by the way. Audience, come back.
But anyways, that one is not a Christmas movie to me.
There you go. Do you feel better now?
I guess, yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
for
know.
now. Yeah.
Yeah.
That means you're not going to burn my tea later then?
No.
No, okay. Let's talk a little bit about...
For Americans, that's dinner.
Oh, right.
Yeah, we don't know that stuff.
Oh, right, okay.
See, every time you say tea, when everybody says, oh, the president's come to have tea with the queen, I'm thinking you guys are having a cup of tea.
Oh, right. No, tea's the last big meal of the day.
No, it's dinner. No.
Last big meal of the day, tea.
Dinner.
Some love supper.
No, dinner. But anyways,
you do realise that all this is making you sound like the psycho. Okay.
Not really. And my American friends will know this.
What, the tea is the last meal of the day?
What?
Okay. Let's get back to the sequels for a second.
Number 2, Meg
Psycho
Tilly.
2.
That's all I have to say.
Yeah, I'm not going to go into great detail about this because I'm telling you now, I feel we could do a whole show on that one movie.
Yeah, maybe we'll come back and do it.
But yes, Psycho 2, directed, made into a movie in 1983.
In the 80s, yeah.
83, so we're 23 years later after this one, which is one of the biggest delays between films ever in the history of cinema. For a sequel, I should say. It's directed by Richard Franklin. it was another, like Brian De Palma, another massive Hitchcock fan, perfect guy to do this. Written by Tom Holland as well, as I pointed out in a previous episode we did of Fright Night when I briefly touched on this movie. And I have to say, it's for me personally, it's one of the greatest sequels to any especially big Hollywood movie that everyone knows.
Yeah.
I think they did a fantastic job.
Even Halloween?
Yeah.
I thought you liked Halloween too.
Oh, Halloween 2?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you was on about that
Sequel.
horrid monster that came out in 2018.
No.
Oh, Halloween 2, yeah, Halloween 2 is a great sequel. The reason I picked this one is just because it came out, like you said, 23 years later, but it does fit the story because Norman gets released from an institute 23 years later.
Yeah.
So, and you've got this older Anthony Perkins and it kind of fits.
Yeah.
And it's a wonderful movie because it plays with the idea of, is Norman cured? And there's all this horrific stuff that's going on inside Norman's head, or is Norman back to his old ways? And it's just a fantastic movie.
Now, was Hitchcock alive at this point?
No.
Okay, I thought he died
Hitchcock died in 1980.
Oh, okay.
Same year
so
I
you
was
missed out.
born.
Oh.
Yeah.
Are you reincarnated? Is
I
that what
think
you're
so
trying to
because
say?
we share the same birthday,
Oh,
and
my
we've both
Lord.
got and we've both got a massive interest in food and American blonde women.
And you're English.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm scared.
And
I need to do like a reincarnation, like life thing. Like
I've even got his belly and airline. And the laugh suggests that was spot on.
not the hairline.
Oh,
At least
just
you
the
didn't lose
belly.
your hair. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that makes me feel really better. Psycho 3 comes out in 1986. Got to mention that there was a third part as well, which again is a guilty pleasure for me. And my sister loves it. We'd have discussions about why this one doesn't. It's not as good as Psycho. It's not as good as Psycho 2, but it's still really fun and interesting. And Anthony Perkins actually directed that one himself. Then there was a TV movie in 1991 directed by TV horror specialist Mick Garris, which was a prequel to kind of tell
that
us.
one that we watched recently with
We're gonna get there.
what's his
Bud Court,
name? Bud.
cult legend Bud Court.
Bud.
Bud
Oh,
Court.
that was horrible, wasn't it?
Terrible. Which I have to say is the first time I'd ever seen it. We watched it recently because I think
Yeah.
it's one of these Bates things I've never watched. Actually,
Yeah.
although it was filmed at Universal as a TV pilot in 1987 to turn into a show which featured Bud Court picking up the Bates Motel, bringing it back to life, and then having these little sinister goings on with different people that would turn up there every week for every episode.
Yeah.
But the pilot was filmed and that's what we watched. But it didn't. Nobody ran with the pilot. Nobody was interested in it, and that was the end of that. So to this day, there is a TV movie called Bates Motel from 1987 with Bud Court, which we recently watched, which, as Hope rightly points out, was terrible.
It's on YouTube.
Yeah,
if you want
it
to watch
never
it.
became a series.
No.
But what did become a series is a show called The Bates Motel.
Yeah.
In the early 2000s, and you're gonna have to pick it up for me because I have to admit, for some reason, I didn't watch it and I didn't want to watch it.
Well,
But
did they
tell me why I might be wrong.
Okay, hang on one second, because didn't they do another TV movie on Psycho, or were they going to do?
I was telling you before you told me that Bud Court was in the one that we watched recently.
Because
there was a Mick Garris prequel.
Okay.
For TV in 91, again with Anthony Perkins, who rings up a radio broadcaster and relates the story of how he grew up, where Emery Thomas plays him as a young boy, and where the actress who plays Juliet in Romeo and Juliet, the famous one, Olivia...
I don't know. But anyways, as
she
I was
plays the
saying,
mum.
okay, well, as I was saying,
Jesus.
there's an episode of Knight Rider, a Halloween episode of Knight Rider, and it kind of goes off this guy who played Norman Bates. I believe it was in that one that you're talking about, and he looks like Norman Bates, and he played Norman in something, and he was actually acting as Norman Bates in the movie. I'm sorry, in the TV show Knight Rider, if you remember correctly. And there was a reference of Halloween 3 in that. Thanks. Somebody had a mask on at the party.
So you just wanted to squeeze in the Halloween 3 reference?
Yeah.
Okay.
and the Psycho reference.
Can I just mention
into Knight Rider season 5 Halloween? There you go.
Okay. Let me just point out that there was a TV movie with Olivia Hussey who played Juliet in the original, because that was really pissing me
How can
off.
I forget Hussey?
She was a hussy. No, she's great. I like Olivia as well. She's always fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so the Bates
No.
Motel.
No. Wonderful stuff. Check it out.
2000 something. It was late 2007. Did it come on?
The TV show.
Bates Motel.
I just didn't watch it.
Yeah, and it had what's his name from the Willy Wonka, the remake of Willy Wonka, Highmore.
Oh yeah, Freddie Highmore.
Yeah.
Yeah, he plays Norman, doesn't he? That's as much as I know about
as a younger Norman. This is like a prequel, and Vera.
Farm
from our
her.
from all the Blumhouse Conjuring movies,
all that type of stuff.
Yeah, she plays Lorraine Warren in all those movies. But you know, I liked the first few seasons. First couple seasons were okay. It kind of fell off, because then they brought in like fucking Rihanna and shit. Like seriously, in an episode, it's like it was like pointless. I didn't know why she was even in it.
How many series did that run for?
5, I think.
How much story is there to tell?
That's what I mean. It just, by 4 and 5, it just got shit. So the first 3 seasons were pretty good. You know, it was just more of his backstory of how he kind of went a little crazy and him killing his mother and stuff.
Okay. Does it acknowledge the aforementioned TV movie that I mentioned with Mick Garris directed with Olivia Hussey? Did it mention that though? Did it just like, let's forget that and do our own thing?
He did he tried hooking up with a girl, you know, like he started seeing a girl, but you know, he still had his mother issues, so that kind of like fell off, you know, a little bit. So yeah, I don't know. It was okay. It's been so long since I've watched it.
Is it worth investigating?
Yeah, I mean, I guess like you said, the first couple scenes, but I don't know. I didn't care for it. I wasn't overly enthusiastic about it, but I would watch it.
Well, the last thing we got to talk about before we finish, and I'm going to squeeze this in just before we finish, is, as you mentioned right at the top of this show, that awful 1998 Gus Van Sant, absolutely pointless piece of shit remake.
Oh, okay.
From 98, where in the Marianne Crane role we had Anne Hesh, is that?
Oh, Gus Van Sant did that?
I'm afraid so.
Oh, Lord. What was he thinking?
I don't know. This is his career suicide period.
Vince Vaughn trying to play
Norman.
Norman. Are you serious?
And it was a shot-for-shot remake as well, basically meaning they used the same storyboards as Hitchcock's movie. Yeah. So there was nothing original in this movie except for new faces in the roles. It's now shot in colour, which really is not nice. And the fact that we get to see Norman Bates masturbate, because we couldn't show that in the 1960 version. Do you want to see Vince Vaughn shuffling his little member? No. I don't want to see him playing with swingers.
Luckily I saw it at the Dollar Show. It was the Swingers. Oh.
Oh, hope. The Dollar Show is where it belongs. Julianne Moore playing the Vera Miles part. Viggo Mortensen playing the John Gavin role as the boyfriend. William H. Macy now playing Albrecht, the detective who goes into the house.
So it's just updated 90s version.
Yeah, Robert Forster turns up. James Remar plays the highway patrolman who stops Marion on her way. Do you remember that sequence where she gets stopped by the highway patrolman when she first steals the money? Yeah. Which again is another scene we should have mentioned at the top of the show. James Remar.
Oh, okay.
He's a wonderful 80s actor that I really, really liked in The Warriors and various things.
Why is that?
So it had a big Gus Van Sant. It was Gus Van Sant. Everyone wants to be in it. It's like, I'll do it. But as we now know, it's one of the worst fucking movies ever.
Yeah, it was so bad. Yeah.
And I still to this day.
I don't know why I watched it.
That's one of the. If I met Gus Van Sant, I would want to ask him. Though I would want to just say, "Why the hell have you made that? Why did you do that?"
Yeah.
But yeah, unfortunately for all of us, that film does exist. So, don't ever spend any of your time even wasting a second on that.
No, I would watch the TV show before that movie.
If you want the real deal, it's always 1960, classic. Alfred Hitchcock's original Psycho.
Of course.
Which takes us out of this show. That's it.
Yeah,
we're done. It. So episode 27, welcome back everyone.
I was about to do my porky pick. But that's all, folks.
Please tell me that will stay in.
No, I'm editing that out. Way. That's going out.
It's fantastic.
But if you want more of our goofiness, just come visit us at Sound and Vision. And we have Nightmare Cinema also, where we talk about scary movies. Yeah, which is a horror-based one, yeah. Yeah, the scary movies we love. But we have Sound and Vision and 2020 Vision, which is our fun little groups to come join us on Facebook. Join us on Instagram.
Absolutely. So as of episode 28 Psycho, this is your host, Ian James, saying goodbye.
And this is Hope saying goodbye.
Goodbye.